Welcome. My purpose today is to discuss the postmodern feminist conceptual artist Barbara Kruger. I want to add that this video only covers a portion of Kruger's works. Barbara Kruger was an only child born in Newark, New Jersey on January 26, 1945. Kruger was raised by her parents in a middle-class neighborhood, and both of her parents worked. Her father, a chemical technician, and her mother, a legal secretary. She attended both grade school and high school in Newark. Kruger never graduated from college, but did attend Syracuse University for 1 year, where she studied art and returned home after her father died. From there, Kruger attended the School of Visual Arts, then the Parsons School of Design. There, she studied under Diane Arbus, a well-known American photographer, and Marvin Israel, a graphic designer. Today, Kruger lives in both New York and Los Angeles. Her early experiences: Barbara Kruger started out working at magazines as an editorial designer. She did so because she needed a job after she left school at the age of 19. Kruger needed to make a living, and she had not set out to become an artist. In 1966, Kruger began working for several magazine publications, such as Mademoiselle and House and Garden, through Condé Nast Publications as an editorial designer. Her experience in the positions she held would eventually lead her to the artwork she became famous for. Kruger began creating art in 1969, and at that time she was creating wall hangings that were woven with yarn and other bits and pieces of items such as beads, ribbons, and sequins. In 1973, her artwork titled 2 a.m. Cookie was on display in the Whitney Biennial, which was an area in the Whitney Museum where contemporary art was on display. Kruger went on to have some solo shows after that, but after a couple of years, she left New York and moved to California. In California, she taught at the University of California. While there, Kruger became interested in poetry. She wrote her own poetry and continued to develop her painting skills. By 1977, Kruger was studying photography. This led her to publish a book in 1978 of black and white photos of the exteriors of buildings, and each photo had a story to go with it, which Kruger had written about what she thought was going on in the lives of the people who lived in the buildings. The book was titled Pictures/Readings. Kruger went on to publish other books as well, including Remote Control. Remote Control was written about the 80s during the Reagan years. The materials that Kruger primarily worked with were photographs in black and white with fonts in large, bold lettering or condensed in white on background of red that are strategically placed on the photo to make a statement. Kruger also uses a lot of pronouns. Her artwork is typically silkscreen prints, but she also creates large installations as well. The main ideas or the driving force behind her artwork there is a popular consensus about that Kruger's work has political meaning or messages. However, Kruger states that her artwork is not political, even though her messages come across loud and clear. While in London and speaking with Suzanne Moore, a Guardian columnist, Kruger stated, "I don't make political art." According to Moore, Kruger makes art about topics that influence society, about authority, and about control. It is how Kruger uses those pictures with words to start a conversation, to make us think, to question ourselves. In a quote from Kruger, quote, "I never say I do political art, nor do I do feminist art. I am a woman who's a feminist, who makes art. But I think what becomes visible and what work remains absent is always the result of historical circumstance." End quote. The next two pieces I wanted to discuss one was called Your Body is a Battleground. This piece was created by Kruger for a protest in Washington, D.C. in 1989. The protest was for a woman's right to choose. And as you know, that conversation is still going on today. The second one was titled, We Have Received Orders Not to Move. This piece was created by Kruger in 1982. It shows a woman in a chair pinned to a wall, unable to move. And I feel that this represents a time in society where women were reacting to the inequalities between women and men. Women were demanding equal pay for equal work. The identifying qualities in Kruger's style, I feel, are the combination of bold fonts and photographs with a message which Kruger intends the viewer to interpret. The use of black and white with a bold red draws the viewer's attention to the printed words. The controversy surrounding her, well, as you might recall, Kruger had used original photography in her work, and this was until the 1970s when she began using found photos. In one of her untitled works, It's a Small World, But Not If You Have to Clean It, from 1990, it became the focus of a lawsuit after the piece was on display at the Museum of Contemporary Art in Los Angeles. The lawsuit was brought against her for violating copyright laws. The German photographer and the subject of the photo sued Kruger and the museum. In the end, Kruger won and the court case was thrown out. There are also some reviews by critics, and in a review by Roberta Smith that originally appeared in the New York Times on January 11th, 1991, Smith basically says that Kruger, who's known to be one of the best feminist artists of the 1980s, has not produced anything new for a while, yet her legacy lives on through many young artists who have emulated the Kruger style of art. The images can be found in subway stations, on posters, in magazines, and billboards. Kruger became the first female to have artwork displayed at the Mary Boone Gallery. And since then, according to Smith, Miss Kruger's own art has seemed somewhat stymied and even confused, end quote, saying that her work looked out of place in the male-dominated gallery where macho neo-expressionist painting is a main theme. Several people in the art world felt that Kruger's association with the Mary Boone Gallery might have a negative effect on her artwork. However, her installation at Mary Boone Gallery in January 1991 changed everything. Kruger had expanded her use of photos and text to cover an entire room. The installation includes black-white images that she's famous for, but on a grand scale, with the use of the red and the giant bold type and the white producing a feeling of rage, irritation, and curiosity, so much so that the viewer can't look away. The topics are typical to the Kruger style. Current events such as women's rights, abortion, racism, and domestic abuse are front and center. Smith writes that Kruger has lost some of the important elements of her earlier work, especially the connection between the images and the statements. Smith says the focus has changed to be more written words and their meaning. Smith writes that Kruger is behind some of the other artists who are producing politically motivated art. However, it appears that Kruger has moved on to start something new with her installation art and the choice of current event topics. According to Jody Zeller, Art Papers magazine, Kruger's photos and words are not working against each other. Quote, they coexist in perfect harmony, each a necessary part of the whole, end quote. The artwork is mostly graphics and design, and I feel that she enjoyed the work with the graphics and not so much of the design due to a quote from Kruger herself. Quote, I basically wasn't cut out for design work because I had difficulty in supplying someone else's image of perfection, end quote. And then what I find very interesting about her, I guess, that she's a woman, and I particularly found Kruger's work very intriguing. Her artwork makes people stop and think. It encourages conversations about issues that need to be addressed. And this is still true today. And she's also, worked in film. She's done magazine articles. She's done a lot of other things that I didn't even get to touch base on. But I really think she's a really neat lady. So that's the end. Thanks.